Guys, I just wanted to say this morning, I'm not a speaker, I'm just an ordinary dad, and so if you can just cut me a little bit of slack this morning, I would really appreciate that. Maybe walk with me a little bit this morning, because it's kind of a tough thing for me to do. I thought this morning what I'd do is maybe just talk a little bit about my family first. Since I'm in front of a family, I can talk about my family. My wife for the last couple of years has fed single moms and their kids. And a lot of the moms have been immigrant moms, new to our country, and I think it's a good thing that she's done. Good relationship. I've got an my oldest daughter, Jessica. She's just come back from a place called Toon Moon, which is about an hour outside of Hong Kong. There she was working with single moms and drug addicts. I've got another daughter, Marissa, who you'll see on the video a little bit later. Marissa, you might have seen Marissa. She sings God Bless America at the start of basketball games in Florida, or football games in Florida. She's got an incredible voice and got a scholarship to sing at the University in Florida. And she's a Canadian that sings God Bless America. It's kind of neat. I've got another little guy who's in grade 8, his name is Caleb, red-headed guy, and he's the sports guy in the family. He just loves to play hockey and basketball and keeps the old man, me, young, because I chase after him. He's also the guy that put the video together, said that, Dad, you can't go out unless you got something cool to show. So I appreciate his efforts in putting that together. Guys, I owned a large manufacturing company. I hired lots of people exactly like you. And the deal was you could come to work for me on one condition. You had to bring your bright ideas. And I want bright ideas brought to my business because my business would prosper because of your bright ideas. So let's work the same thing this morning. I'm going to show a video and talk a little bit after that. But while I'm talking, while the video is going, I want you guys to think of a question that you might want to ask me. And this is not a test, just an interesting question. And a crowd like this, I will probably get somewhere between 100 to 150 questions. And the person with the most interesting question this morning is going to have a really good lunch. $20 is going out. So let's roll the video and I'll come back and talk in a few minutes. Recently, I've been talking to young kids, to young workers in high schools, exactly like you. I'm trying to encourage kids to ask more questions. I know it's tough to find a job. I know it's a full-time job, just getting a job. But there are more questions than how much am I going to make and how many hours do I get to work this week? There are a few more important questions, such as, has there been any turnover in this job that I am going to now start? And why has the turnover occurred? Why am I getting such a great opportunity? Will there be any equipment that I have to work on that I'm not familiar with? Will I be replacing somebody who's been in the job for a long period of time, knows the job well, and has to go on summer holidays? Will I be replacing that person? And will I get the training, will I get the supervision to go along with that job? Those are pretty simple questions, and I know it's sometimes difficult to ask them, but you guys are the smartest generation. I'm a business owner myself, and I respect this generation coming up. I know that they're very bright, computer-based, and quick. It's okay to ask those questions. It's okay to ask the employer those simple questions. I tell you that right now because Dave would not have asked those questions. I told Dave that he had a job, that he would go down and do that job. Dave was the kind of good kid, as all you probably know him. Dave was the kind of kid who would never ask. He just did the job. February 11th of this year, David was killed on a large industrial mixer in a local bakery. It was only his second day on the job. My wife and I, and David's two sisters, Marissa and Jessica, and his little brother Caleb, many of you might know, desperately miss David every minute of the day. We cannot believe, even to this point, how it could ever have happened.
I'm David Ellis. I'm Dave's sister. We just got along really well, and it's hard because he was like my best friend. He took care of me, and he watched out for me, and we did everything together. So it's hard to lose him, and let alone he's my brother. He's in the same house as me, so I miss him terribly. He was just the perfect brother.
If you like music, David loved music. He was a lead guitar player, played drums, even played some piano. He used to come home from school and he'd wail away on the drums for an hour and play the guitar for half an hour. And he played it loud and he played it often. He and his friend Steve had a small group. They called themselves Numb. They were on their way to touring southwestern Ontario.
Well, my sister, she's the oldest, so for her to lose her younger brother, they were also very close, and they would jam together with the guitars and drums and whatnot. So our house is very musical, so she definitely misses him, and I think it's the hardest for my youngest brother because it was his role model. It was his big brother. He does exactly the same things that he did, and he was the perfect example for younger brother Caleb. And I think Cale's taking it the best. He just trusts that Dave's in heaven.
If you like sports, and I know there are a lot of people here in this crowd that love sports, Dave loves sports. As a young guy, he loved playing baseball. He played center field and he played left field for his rep hardball team. Batted left-handed, threw right-handed, had great hands, quick feet. Just loved being with the rest of the guys out playing.
We had a lot of good times together. He was a really positive guy, and he was the kind of guy you could never really get mad at because he was so positive, and he was just really encouraging. I learned a lot from him. And just the way he lived. It was the hardest thing I've ever been through, just because, I mean, I'd never lost anyone in my life, and for it to be a really good friend, someone who's only 18 years old, yeah, it was really tough.
If you're an academic, Dave had a mid-80 average all the way through. He was headed to university in September.
Worked to the best of his ability, and he was an excellent student. David was in my grade 12 media class, and I had the opportunity to enjoy his presence and to work with him a lot in his projects. He was in the classroom and out of the classroom the same person, a leader in every respect in the classroom.
In grade 12 more, I got to know Dave as for who he really was, and the kind of guy who had always had the courage to stand up for his faith and for what he believed in. Take life more seriously. I think that up until this point, I sort of, in a lot of things I've done, a lot of attitudes that I've had, you sort of, you know, there'll always be another day, but you can't always make that guarantee. Nobody can have that guarantee. So to live my life in a more directed, more focused way, and focused on the right, in the right direction.
But one thing he loved to do was to help those who were less fortunate than he was. I can remember seeing Dave, I guess it was Christmas Day. He was down at Mission Services. He was peeling 40, 50-pound bags of potatoes and carrots to hand out to those guys that just didn't have a dinner for that day. Remember times when he and his high school friends would hand out sleeping bags and blankets to those people that had to sleep on the streets. I can remember times when Dave handed soup and sandwiches out to those people who come near the end of the month when the welfare checks come out. There's a 3 or 4 day period when the checks just need to be there a little bit sooner and there's just not enough food on the table. Dave handed this bowl of soup and the sandwich to a young guy who was about 19 or 20 years old, and he gave him a huge bear hug. Lifted Dave right up off the ground. Dave's face turned red, his ears turned really red. He looked at me and I looked at him and we both started laughing. He was out of breath, I know he was out of breath. But that young boy, he was 18 or 19, turned to Dave and he said, "Dave, you're the very best friend I've got in the world. Thanks."
I think my parents have really been strong and been steadfast on their beliefs and haven't really been bitter about anything. They've just, dealt with it in a way that is very encouraging.
I went to school with him. We were in the same high school, and I actually got to know his sister before I got to know him. We never thought it could happen to anyone around us or anyone close to us, but it has, and that has really affected all of us.
Work accidents are all too common now, so I just really think that people need to really consider their lives and just to evaluate it and just to really think about what their life would be like if it ended too short.
First of all, when you go into a workplace, that you know what's around you, you know what you have to do, and you know what your right is, that you can refuse to say no if you feel that's unsafe, and that you have that right that no one can force you to do something that you don't feel is safe.
If David had had the training that is available right now, perhaps David would have asked those questions, those important questions to an employer. Perhaps that accident would not have occurred. David went, and unexpectedly, totally unexpected, and because it has caused great pain for our family and those who knew him. And I would like for people to weigh their own relationships with their moms and dads, their own relationships with their brothers and sisters, the people that care for them, the people that love them. Let's get those relationships right and get right back on track again, because we got a bright future in Ontario. David has left us. He has left his mark. And I know people can be influenced and encouraged positively. We can make this a much better place to work in, to live in, to play in. I can't view that video anymore. I can't view the video anymore because I miss Dave too much. I miss the smile off the set of drums. As I was sitting over there, I was thinking, boy, would it be great to play basketball with Dave right now. Dave used to school me all the time. Fake one way and then go hard to the basket the other way. And I'd grab him on the way by. And he'd laugh and I'd laugh. And wrestle a little bit. just a dad and his son. Caleb, my other little son, was cheering on the side for Dave. I can't tell you how much I love Dave, how much I miss Dave. And it's hard for me to do this, but it's something that Dave would want me to do. I know as I look at each and every one of you guys, that Dave would have been your friend. So I'm not just alone here. I'm talking to Dave's friends. And if Dave were here this morning, he'd say, Dad, you can pick it up a little bit. My friends will help you out. So I'm just going to talk to you guys as Dave's friends. I want to talk to you as adults as well, if you don't mind. Because I see you guys as the next generation, the leaders of Canada. So this is an adult discussion. Guys, if you can walk with me a little bit this morning, makes it a bit easier for me now. I got a call from my wife about 10:30 in the morning on February. Cold February morning. I could hardly even hear her voice. She said, Rob, you got to get over to the hospital. Dave's been in a really bad accident. David fast-tracked through high school, finished at the end of January, ready to help out, get his first job. I was so scared when I heard my wife's voice. I didn't know what to do. So each one of you guys get with me and come with me and get in the car with me. I put the pedal to the metal. I don't remember a thing on the way to the hospital. No details at all. All I wanted to do was to get to Dave. Here we are rolling into the parking lot of the hospital. And I look out and there's a doctor and a nurse waiting for me in the front door of the hospital. And I know it's big time trouble. So come with me and walk with me down the hospital corridor. A long, cold corridor. It seems like you're walking forever. I'm going to see my son, Dave. Maybe you're going to see your friend or somebody that you love. I looked down on my knees and my knees were knocking. They were shaking so hard. I was so scared. And I walked into that room and everybody would recognize that room with the flat bed. But this time it's different. This time it's different because my son Dave is on that bed. And there's blood on the floor and there's blood on the walls. And my son's clothes are completely drenched in blood. I just could not believe it. And I wanted to shout out at the tops of my lungs, everybody get out of here. Everybody just get right out of this room right now. Because as a dad, I wanted to get there and protect my son. I wanted to pick my son up with my arms. Pick him up with my arms and take him to the car and take him home where it was safe. That was my job as a dad. To protect my son and be there for my son when he needed me. And I couldn't. And all I saw was my son Dave lying on that table, fighting for his life. And the doctor came over to me and said, Mr. Ellis, we don't think your son can make the 6-minute helicopter flight to the next hospital. I looked at him and I said, he'll make it. He's my son, Dave Ellis. He's a great kid with a great big heart and a will to live, and he is one awesome kid. You never discount my son, Dave Ellis. He's a great kid. And all I could do was drop to my knees and say, God, give Dave the strength to make the 6-minute helicopter flight. You can do that. And I got to tell you that Dave made the 6-minute helicopter flight. He's just like you guys. Great hearts, great spirit to live. He made the 6-minute helicopter flight to the next hospital. And for 6 days, 24 hours a day, great Canadians supported us. Absolutely filled the hospital. Not for 2 hours, not for 4 hours, but for 24 hours a day. Filled the whole hospital. And at the end of the 6th day, the head surgeon came to my wife and I and said, we're sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Ellis. We're going to take your son, David, off the life support machine. And we lost Dave. And what really hurts as a dad is I had to go back to my 2 daughters and my little guy. And it was just at that time Caleb was saying, Dad, let's get out of here. I'm sick of being here. Let's go get Dave and go home. And I had to say to Caleb, I'm sorry, Caleb. Dave isn't going to come home with us. We have to leave him here. And Caleb just looked up at me and said, I just can't. No, that's not true, Dad. It's really hard for a little guy who looked up to Dave as his big brother. And it rips your heart. It just rips your heart. And I have to tell you that the doctors and the nurses, when Dave died, all wept. The impact of an 18-year-old kid on doctors and nurses who do this every day. The people that work for me all wept. The people who worked at the bakery where Dave worked all wept. The people in our community all stopped for a minute. Because that was the impact that an 18-year-old kid had on Canadians. Great kid. Great kid. Just like you guys. Great. Dave was exactly like you guys. Just wanted to help out. He could have worked for me, but there was a call that came into the house, and a fellow that owned a local bakery had some staff turnover, and he needed Dave right away. He promised Dave 6 weeks of training. And Dave turned to me and said, what do you think, Dad? And I said, go for it, Dave. Right on. I think it's great to work. Dave, with a big smile on his face, looked at me and said, Dad, I'll even help you out with the cost of university. And I said, right on, man. I appreciate that. And off Dave went to work. The first day he left at 5:30, and he came home at night. And I said, Dave, how'd the job go? And Dave just shrugged his shoulders up and down and said, Dad, it's just a job. You know, as a dad, I made a mistake. I didn't ask him any more questions than, how'd the job go? I should have asked him a lot more questions, and I didn't. I didn't. And Dave went off to work the next day. Left alone on the floor of the bakery with very little training. Working on the largest piece of industrial equipment, a big industrial mixer with huge blades in it. And his job was to clean out the mixer. And what Dave didn't know was 18 months before, the government had come in and inspected that place of employment and found out that the mixer did not have any safety equipment on it. No guards, no lockouts. And they issued a verbal work order to get the guards and lockouts placed on the industrial mixer. Unfortunately, the owners of the company were not like some of the good owners that are here today of businesses. They ignored the warning and didn't put the safety equipment on and didn't tell Dave that the safety equipment needed to be put on. That wouldn't have mattered. Dave, he wouldn't have known anyways. He just wanted to please the boss. Put his head down, no questions asked, go to work, do a great job, earn $7.35 an hour. That was Dave's attitude. I'll do the job, Dad. And somehow, some way, nobody knows because he was left alone on the floor. There could have been a power surge, anything. The machine got turned on and pulled Dave in. And I don't have to describe to you the devastation it caused Dave's body for something that never should have ever happened. It's tough to take. The government came in and took the owners of the company to court and found them to be negligent and guilty. They fined the one owner of the company $7,500 and gave him 12 months to pay it off, like a used vehicle. The other owner of the company, he was sent to jail. He was sent to jail for 20 days, served on the weekends. The company, they wiped Dave's blood out of the mixer, got the safety equipment on the next day. We're back in business the following day. And I had one young guy say, "Come on, Mr. Ellis, you got to be spitting bullets over this." What kind of a message does that send to young Canadians? 20 days served on the weekends? Don't you realize that some guy in Toronto got sent to jail for 90 days for the killing of a cat? 20 days for your son, 90 days for the cat? Come on, Mr. Ellis, you got to be spitting bullets. And I looked at him and I said, you know, for one day, I'm a human being. For one day, yeah, I was like a volcano. I was so mad I lost my son, somebody that I really loved. I was ripping mad. But then I went back and I looked at Dave's picture. The picture off the set of the drums. Big smile on his face. All he wanted to do was help people around him. What would Dave want the old man, me, to do? I knew right away. The first thing I needed to do was to forgive. And in this school, you'll know about forgiveness. That's what I did. I went over to the two employers and I said, I forgive you. Because I think that's the right thing to do. I didn't want to get bitter and angry. I just wanted to forgive. The second thing Dave would have wanted me to do, get up off the couch, not point any fingers at anybody like the government or anybody else. Get up off the couch like a real Canadian and get into action. But not action alone, but action with a team, with you guys. And make a difference in Canada. That's what Dave would have done. That's what he would have wanted me to do. So I sold my business. I can always go back and buy another business. But right now, the fight is on to make changes in Canada. And I'm absolutely desperate to get in front of Canadians, adults and students alike. I travel all over Canada and I talk to university kids, college kids, students in high schools just like this. I tell you guys, I don't want to hear rocket science when you're in front of a boss like me. I just want simple questions. Simple questions like, do I have to wear these gloves? Do I have to wear this hard hat? Do I have to wear the hard-toed shoes? Is there any orientation before I start working? Will I be put into a buddy system with somebody who's more experienced than me? I think those are real simple questions. And I think that all you guys, if I empower you with that knowledge, you'll ask the questions. I can tell you that a lot of students have fed emails back to me, and you know, young students don't email geezers like me, and that's the truth. And young students have said to me, I'll start asking questions. And I think that's good. I also tell students, you have the right to say no to unsafe work. And you do, but we're not quite there yet. So I tell students, if your boss doesn't give you the respect that each and every person here deserves, because each person has special talents, don't downgrade yourself. You have special talents that you bring to the workforce. If your boss doesn't respect you and doesn't give you the kind of things that you think you need to begin with at work, and you don't feel comfortable, do not work for that person. You're out of there. But I'll tell you, one of the real reasons I like coming out and talking to Dave's friends, you guys, you'll give me the straight goods back. I had one young guy come down to me at the end of a session, really mature kid. And he said to me, Mr. Ellis, get yourself a reality check. And I said, come on, tell me. And he said, Mr. Ellis, I work at an $11.50 an hour job, and it's a dangerous job. I don't like working there. But the one thing you don't understand, Mr. Ellis, is this. My mom is a single mom. She's already working 2 jobs to make ends meet, to pay for our apartment and put food on our table. I got a brother and sister, Mr. Ellis, and someday I'd like to go to college and university just like my friends. My mom needs $11.50 to make ends meet. And how do you answer that? The way I answered it was this: you got yourself an awesome mom. You must honestly love her and respect her. She's working 2 jobs to make ends meet. Sounds like a great Canadian lady. And you have got courage, and you have got strength and backbone and great ideas, and you're the kind of kid I'd love to hire, and any employer in Canada would love to hire you. You're a great kid. I want you to take the courage you've just shown me and go back to your employer tomorrow and ask for help. Because I don't want you to get injured. And if your employer says to you, listen kid, don't you realize you're making $11.50 an hour? Put your head down and go back to work. If he says anything along that lines, you're out of there. And go down the street and get a job. And you might not get $11.50 an hour, you might get $9 an hour. But you go home safe. And you go home with a great future ahead of you. And I want you, not you, I want you, either your mother or your grandmother, I don't care who it is, to report that place at work as a dangerous place to work. Go on your website, get Ministry of Labor, WSIB, on their anonymous number, and report it and get it inspected. I can tell you that because Dave's 2 best buddies worked at the same place, the same machinery, and both of them got hurt. But nobody talked about jobs. But we're going to put a change to that. We're going to put a change to that real quick. As a dad, I lost Dave, and I'm passionate about that, and I'll fight. For my kids, I'll fight for you guys. But what I was stunned to hear was that over 15,000 young workers in Ontario got injured between the ages of 15 and 24 last year. And the government actually thinks it's as high as 40 or 50,000 young workers that got injured in Ontario, because a lot of the injuries don't get reported. And you know that. 50,000? If 50,000 whales got injured, we'd have baskets going back and forth here right now collecting money for the whales. And I think I love whales. And I love whooping cranes. And if whooping cranes were endangered too, I mean, I don't want to see whales or whooping cranes extinct. So let's save the whales and the whooping cranes. But what about you guys? Who comes first? In my family, you guys come first. I'm going to start the basket. I'm going to get up and I'm going to tell Canadians, and I'm going to challenge Canadians, because we need some changes made. I think the one thing that really holds us back is fear. I think all of us, whether you're a young person or an adult, are all afraid to stick up your hand and say, I need help. Before you start working, or maybe after you work. We're all afraid to stick up our hand. Fear. I think there's two other things. There's tradition. We've always done it this way. You still hear that? And machoism, guys. That still exists. I'm a man, I don't have to wear a hard hat. I'm a man, I don't have to wear these gloves. Hey, I'm a man. I don't have to wear any hard-toed shoes. Still hear that today. So guys, let's pick on you a little bit. And I'll get to the girls next. Guys, I know the Toronto Maple Leafs very well, but I also had a chance to ride up on the airplane with Roger Nielsen to Ottawa. And I think the Senators are headed in the right direction. So I'm going to give you your dream job. And I know there's a lot of great girl hockey players in Ottawa. So if you want to join in this, that's great too. No problem. Guys, since I want to pick on you, let me address you first. You're a man, remember. No fear, tradition, machoism. Okay. I'm going to give you an opportunity to play behind Patrick Lalime. Outstanding goalie. He's been working really hard, but he needs a little bit of rest and practice. So guys, you're not coming back to your school next week. I'm going to take you down and we're going to work out with the Senators. Between the pipes. You get, between $3 and $5 million. You get lots of notoriety. You get the money, you get the notoriety. You get your job. Between the pipes. Patrick's sitting off on the side and now you're in net. One thing, guys, I can't give you is this, though. We'll get it for you, though, when you start working and actually making the team. Unfortunately, we just don't have any, but we'll get it on order. Can't give you a mask to wear. But hey, listen, remember, you're a macho man. You don't need a mask. You can get between the pipes. Got the money, remember? It's the money, the big time money. Well, you're now between the pipes. And we're in practice. There's a couple of Senators. I'd love to have the puck right now. Fisher is my favorite. Let's give the puck to Fisher. Fisher's got the blinding speed, great shot. Let's give him the puck right now, the red line. Builds up a little speed, he's got the great wheels. Comes over the blue line, comes in about 15 feet from the blue line. Lets a slap shot go. 87 miles an hour, but hey, you guys got the great reflexes. No problem at all. It's no problem at all until Neil comes out of the corner and sticks his stick out and deflects the puck. Well, that's another story. You don't know where the puck's going now, and you're sitting there without a mask on. That puck hits you right in the temple. And I'm sorry to tell you, there won't be huge salary for you tomorrow, big money for you tomorrow. See, there was a very courageous Canadian who changed our culture about 40 years ago. Outstanding Canadian. His name was Jacques Plante. Jacques Plante said to his coach, Toe Blake, between the second and third period, Toe, I'm not going back out on the ice until I get that mask on. And Toe said, okay, go ahead and wear that silly mask. You know what Canadians called Jacques Plante back then? 40 years ago? A wimp and a sissy. Doesn't Jacques Plante know that this is our game? No fear. Tradition. Machoism. Isn't it interesting how 40 years have passed and we think differently? Not a guy would go out on the ice working out with the Senators or anybody else without the mask on. Safety before the money. Girls, let's quickly switch to you. Some very bright girls here in this school, and that's good. Girls, I'm going to give you an opportunity of being one of the top surgeons in all of North America. You can either be a heart surgeon, a dental surgeon, or a plastic surgeon. Now, most Canadian girls that I talk to right away want to be a plastic surgeon because they're going to change the faces of the guys all around them real quick. So let's just stay with a plastic surgeon. Girls, you're going to get between $2.5 to $7 million, depending upon how much you want to work. Work anywhere you want, any clinic in North America. The one thing, girls, I cannot give you is this. Oh, we'll get them for you, but don't worry. I can't give you surgical gloves. And it's a messy job, girls. But the one thing you don't want to get is HIV/AIDS. And everybody here, the next time you go to a dentist, and your dentist walks out, he's wearing surgical gloves, it's not because you guys have HIV/AIDS. It's because that one person might come into his practice, might have AIDS. And he's not going to risk his practice, his life, his family, because of that one person. And we're talking about the NHL playoffs? Okay. I'll give you one scenario that I think is going to come true, and you can mark my words on it. 3 to 5 years, we're going to see the end of fighting in the NHL. Not because of the violence in the game, it's always been part of our game. It's because of this one reason. Ty Domi gets into a fight. Saturday night, hockey night in Canada. Playing against St. Louis. St. Louis has brought some guy up from the minors. Ty goes into the corner, and Ty's a left-hander. Ty gets the guy on the bridge of his nose, and there's blood all over the place. The next morning, the trainer for the Toronto Maple Leafs comes up to Ty Domi and says this, Ty, got some bad news for you, Ty. The guy you got into a fight with last night, he's been tested positive, HIV/AIDS. And we're going to have to test you, Ty. For that very reason alone, fighting will stop in the NHL. If you don't think I'm right, let's quickly switch to the NBA. Vince Carter goes hard to the hole, gets cut off, goes slamming down on the floor, cuts his knee open. Blood on the floor. What did the Players Association say? Get Carter off the floor. The game stops. The blood has to come off the floor first. The blood has to come off of Carter before he can come back in the game. Safety before the money. They're not risking their lives for one person, whether it's Vince Carter or anybody else. Everybody's under the same rule. I think we live in a different era now. All I have to do is mention SARS and West Nile. We live in a different era, and we need to ask a lot more questions. If I can leave you with this one last thing. When you're in front of your boss, your new boss there this spring or this summer, and you really just don't have it inside of your stomach here to ask those questions, because I know it's going to take some courage. I know that. I'll just ask you to think of one thing, guys. Will you think of one thing? That's my son Dave, who did not ask any questions. Who, if he were here today, would say, Dad, get my friends to ask the questions. And they will. And if you ask the questions and get responses that you want, I'm sure you're going to be working in a much better place than Dave ever worked in. And together, if we be champions on the job, we can make this place a lot better and a lot safer to work in. And we'll change Canada together. You guys are the champions and you're awesome. Let's do the work now. Thanks very much.